Baker Mayfield. He reminds me of a shorter version of Brett Favre. He can throw it. He's very confident. He's not afraid whatsoever.
Another guy that isn't getting nearly as much attention as I believe he should be is Florida international receiver T.Y. Hilton. 6 returns over his career, combining kick and punt returns for touchdowns.
He has the mindset, and he has the intelligence, and he understands the offense to a T. Kirk's our quarterback. We could have done a deal right then and got it for long term and been a slam dunk.
Sam is a good football player. The problem is he's not a great football player, and that's so we're bringing so much attention to a guy that, frankly, is a day 3 prospect.
And now, the Instinctive Scouting Podcast, featuring 2-time NFL General Manager Scot McCloughan and NFLDraftScout.com Senior Analyst Rob Rang.
Hi, and welcome to the Instinctive Scouting Podcast, starring 2-time NFL General Manager Scot McCloughan and myself, Rob Rang, Senior Analyst for NFLDraftScout.com. This week, after a couple of weeks off for some holiday time, we're giving our picks for the NFL's individual award winners, taking a peek back at some of our favorite college bowl games of the 2018 season, looking ahead to this weekend's divisional round NFL playoff matchups. But first, Scott, we've got to start off with Clemson's 44-16 thrashing of Alabama in the national championship game. I know that a lot of people out there thought that Clemson could play with Alabama, but I don't know that very many of us anticipated Clemson going on a 30-3 run after leading just 14-13 in the first quarter and ultimately blowing out the Crimson Tide. What were your thoughts after watching the national championship game?
You know what? Very impressed with them. With Clemson, very impressed with Alabama from the standpoint of their talent level. To see a true freshman do what he did was incredible. You know, Tua's a good player, don't get me wrong. The whole Alabama offense, defense, special teams is really good.
Yeah.
But to see Clemson dominate like that, it's something for Dabo. Big time. Because you know what? He recruited all those guys. And for them to be on a national stage and win like they won, it's incredible. But that true freshman quarterback is something else.
No, he really is. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was absolutely spectacular. I mean, heading into that game, I'll call myself out. I very much picked Alabama to win that game, and one of the primary reasons why is because I thought that Tua Tagovailoa would be a better player in the clutch situation than Trevor Lawrence, and could not have been more wrong in that. And it's like you said, Scott, it's not that Tua is a bad player. Tua is a very intriguing NFL prospect, very good player, quite possibly a first-round caliber player. Some people are even saying, possibly number 1 overall. That remains to be seen. But Trevor Lawrence, I mean, I don't know that I've ever in my entire life seen a more impressive performance by a freshman quarterback giving the stage than what he did. And, of course, we want to go back a year to say that the Tua did a very similar thing. But that was at the halftime. And he didn't have to have all that build-up.
Yeah,
and so
he didn't start. The thing about Lawrence, he had the whole 2 weeks to build up, the whole thing. He had to answer questions day in and day out. And to see a guy that has that kind of confidence and that kind of calmness is amazing. It's amazing. I'm telling you, he reminds me of Troy Aikman. Wow. Troy never got rattled. Never got rattled. And to see him sit back in the pocket and do what he does for a true freshman, the guy's 19 years old or whatever, maybe 20. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's special. I mean, that's the Super Bowl of college football, and you play in that thing. And like I said, going up through the game, you got to deal with so much stuff. It's not even funny. And the kid did it. Not a kid, I guess he's a young adult. He did it. And I think that's special. Very special. Now, is he going to be a first pick overall? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's a freshman, true freshman. So he's got 2 more years of play, and if he wants to come out, he can come out. If not, play your 4th year. But they got a lot of talent on that team too, and they gave it to Alabama. They gave it to them. They beat their tail. And that's impressive because Alabama's a really, really good football team.
Yeah, and that's what I thought I was so impressed by the game from Clemson's perspective. I mean, heading into that game, you and I had talked so much about Alabama's talent, and I think that Clemson clearly is very similarly gifted, maybe even more so. I know that I did a preview of the game for local sports radio here in the Seattle area, and I said I had 24 prospects that I thought might be eligible for or might be considering going into the 2019 NFL draft that were playing in that game. 12 for Alabama, 12 for Clemson. Certainly more talent or more NFL prospects on their team, but we're including some freshmen and sophomores in there that obviously are not eligible yet. But at the same time, what was so impressive to me is not just the talent that Clemson showed. I mean, we could all see that, but the poise. You mentioned the poise of the quarterback, but the poise of their coaching staff. And Dabo, as you said, I mean, just his entire staff. It just looked like they were dialing up more exotic blitzes. They had, the more creative combinations in terms of their routes and things that they were asking Trevor Lawrence to do. I mean, this was high difficulty stuff that you're asking this freshman to do, and for him to do it so well was, I think, what was so impressive about it. And so I think we can get caught up in just the hype about the quarterbacks, but I really think that Clemson's offensive line deserves a lot of credit. I mean, they go in this game, and everybody's talking about the defensive line talent for both teams, and then Clemson doesn't allow a single sack. And I wonder how much different that would be if Trevor Lawrence had been hit a few times earlier in that game. Would he still have been nearly as successful as he was down the stretch? Because down the stretch, I mean, he was hotter than a firecracker.
Yeah, the thing is, Rob, and people are going to question me on this, Sabo got out-coached by Dabo. They got out-coached. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You get out-coached, and the thing about it is you get in a certain situation. I was there in Green Bay, and Denver kicked our tails in the Super Bowl, and we had it. We knew we had it. We were 17-point favorites. We had Brett Favre, you had Reggie White, you had Antonio Freeman, and I think this is a realization to what's so cool about college football is the fact that Dabo outcoached him.
Yeah.
He outcoached him. He outcoached him plain and simple. And the players are the players. Both sides have great players. There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
But Dabo outcoached him.
Well, and that's what not that I was surprised by that, because I think the Sweeney has done a great job in the past as well. But it looked like his team was better prepared from an emotional standpoint.
No doubt.
And so that's what I was so encouraged by.
Yeah. No. There's no doubt. I sat there, I'm on my rocking chair watching the game. Of course, I have no involvement in it. But Dabo,
sipping iced tea in your rocking chair.
I've been around good coaches. Dabo outcoached him. Dabo had it. He had it, and he knew it, and he said it. It's impressive.
No, yeah, well, I mean, even pregame, I mean, they kind of had the cameras there, and he just looked so confident. He looked so loose. Yeah. And I think that we saw the Clemson Tigers play that way. And so that, to me, is one of the fascinating things, I think, about just the coaching profession. And of course, we're seeing all these brand new head coaches jumping into the NFL, and that's I think I can understand why people are so excited about all the different schemes, all the different innovative offenses that are going around. But I still come back to me, the head coach still has to be a leader of men. He still has to be that kind of guy who can rally the troops, not just the recruiter, not just the talent evaluator, but just truly an inspirational kind of a coach. And, again, out here in Seattle, I've watched Pete Carroll come in here and make believers out of a lot of people that didn't think that his kind of rah-rah style could work in the NFL. So let me ask you this, and, I don't know how well you know Dabo Swinney, but do you believe that his style could be successful in the NFL?
No doubt about it. You know what? It's not – you can adjust the system to anything you want to do. Mm-hmm. But it's the leader that runs it. Who's in the locker room after the game? who's the one every day in the building that's telling coaches this and that, and they're hard to find. I mean, if you're a good head coach, and not saying Saban's not Pete Carroll's a phenomenal head coach. I won a Super Bowl with him. I got a ring because of him. But this guy can do it. This guy has it. And, and we'll see. I mean, maybe he doesn't want to leave Clemson. He's making good money.
Yeah.
He's got a great program.
Yep.
He's got a lot of young players who are coming back next year. It's incredible. I mean, it's cool because not only is he a good coach, he's a good person. And that's so important for the kids to understand that this guy's got my back.
No, I agree with you. We talked about it, earlier in the year when they had, of course, the backup quarterback, decide that he wanted to transfer, and the way that Dabo, handled that by trying to give him opportunities so that way he could leave without being a distraction, recognizing that Trevor Lawrence was the real deal, and it's just a classy way of running. Even at the end of the game, when they're interviewing him, and you could just hear his pride, but he didn't have to give compliments to Alabama and to Saban, but he did so anyways. And I just thought that I think that the young recruits out there, and just as importantly, their parents who are watching that game, I think that gives Dabo Swinney that much more credit in their mind that this is a classy individual. Because as you said, it's one of the cool things about college football is you have these young people who are still maturing, and if they have a coach who they respect on and off the field as a head coach and as an educator, just as a mentor, a peer, then I think that's one of the reasons why Dabo Swinney has had the success. Now 2 national championships in the last 4 years, 55 wins for his outgoing seniors over the last 4 years. Alabama ties that, but nobody is any better than that.
Yeah, no, it's completely right. Like I said, he's a better person than he is a coach, and he's a damn good coach. The thing about it is, like you said, recruiting-wise, family-wise, they're going to say, this guy's a good person. This guy is going to take care of my kid. And then that's enormous when you're recruiting, because you're recruiting against the best. You're recruiting against Florida State. You're recruiting against Alabama. You're recruiting against Miami, and for a person to prove himself to the family, especially the mom, that's huge. It's gigantic. That's why they're going to have 10 players drafted in the draft, because he identified, which is awesome, but he also had to recruit them and recruit the family. And I think that's so important. So important.
No, I agree. I think it really was one of the remarkable things about this season. I mean, it was just such a great finale for what has been just a spectacular season of college football. And so I think that's a kind of a natural segue is that, there were some other spectacular bowl games that happened over the course of this bowl season. And we didn't get a chance to talk too much about it, Scott. And so I want to kind of just go back and, in our time machine here a little bit. And was there any of the bowl games that really jumped out to you? I mean, the one of the games that, of course, I had a great deal of interest in was the Rose Bowl. And so just seeing Dwayne Haskins in Ohio State and the way he performed, kind of like Trevor Lawrence, in that Haskins started off the game absolutely on fire and helped the Buckeyes kind of jump out to that big lead. And Washington made a game of it at the end, showed kind of their resiliency. But I was impressed by Dwayne Haskins. I thought that I thought that he wasn't nearly as impressive in the second half as he was in the first, and that is a concern. I'm very curious to see Daniel Jones from Duke at the Senior Bowl. It's something that he's going to get the opportunity to do because he's graduating, whereas Haskins is only a redshirt sophomore, is not in that position. But to me, that was one of the fascinating things, that there was just so many really cool bowl games this year. Was there any of the bowl games that jumped out to you, whether it be, the players or a program that really caught your attention as far as doing well, or maybe someone or a program that disappointed you a little bit?
Well, the thing about it is with Ohio State, knowing Urban's retiring,
yep.
the quarterback played okay.
Yeah.
You know,